All right, Emile, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Really appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to digging into one word, and I think this is probably where we'll start, and that's that word profit.
Profit, cool.
And you, by reading your bio, you are considered an expert in profit development. And I have a few questions, but what is profit development? Let's start there, and let's see where this goes.
Well, maybe I'll start by saying a lot of people don't know what profit is. And I'm coached many people in my time where they tell me, I made $10,000 today. But they didn't make $10,000. They maybe sold $10,000, but how much of it was actually profit? And when I ask them, how much did you really make? They have no idea. So the first step is being aware. And to do that, you actually have to budget for profit. And I like to do this little equation. If you go to school and you study economics, they tell you, revenue minus expenses equals profit. And, that's the international standard for calculating profit. But it's wrong. If you're a business owner, you actually have to budget for profit. You actually have to make profit an expense. So I like to tell business people it should be profit plus expenses equal revenue. So you actually put profit on the other side of the equal sign and budget for it. If you don't do that, you'll never get it.
So you make profit and expense. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Right.
So when you do a budget, because you're coaching businesses, right? You're working with businesses. How are you working that in?
Well, depending on the business you do, a lot of people will say, well, I charge $100 an hour, so I make $100 an hour. What they don't realize is they didn't calculate what their overhead, what their expenses are. So there's two types of expenses. There's the cost of doing the job, being instruction, there's labor and material and disposal. That's your cost for the job. It's called the job cost. But then you have your overhead, which is your office and your insurance and your trucks and stuff that are not related to a specific job that you have to pay for no matter what. So these all have to be taken into account before you set your prices. So if it costs you $2,000 to get up in the morning and start your truck and drive to a job site, you can't be doing jobs for $500, right? So you need to know those expenses. Well, on top of those, job costs and overhead costs, well, you have to add profit. So if you've covered your job costs and you've covered your overhead, the next item is you have to add an item in there for profit. Well, I want to make 10%, 15%, 50%, whatever your industry entails, you got to put that in there. So now you do your job costs. Well, it costs you $2,000 to get up in the morning, but you also want to make some money. You don't want to just pay your bills. So if it's your profit you want to make that day is another $200, well, then it costs you $2,200 to go to that job, not $2,000. So
right.
Now you know what your price should be.
So essentially you're starting with what are your overhead costs for the month,
right?
That by however many days, and that's your cost to get up.
Right.
As you're explaining. Am I following that correctly?
Yeah. So there's different ways to do that. Some people make it a percentage. They say, well, I do, so many jobs per year, so divide that into my overhead for the year, and I have to add an X amount of percent of cost for overhead, and then your job costs are fixed costs that what it takes to actually fulfill that job. Whether it's a service, whether it's a product, doesn't really matter. There's a fixed cost for fulfilling a job or providing a service, and then there's the overhead costs that you have whether you go to work or not that has to be accounted for. Then you got to add profit to that.
Okay, so I'm going to bring in some stuff from my own business right now.
Sure.
We're at a little bit of a...
I've done it before. I know what you're going to say.
So we're at a transition point right now. Right. So we've been actually we just passed 9 years. We're 9 years. What's the date today? 18th. So we were 9 years 3 days ago.
Cool.
So we're in our 10th year. Overall, things are going really good. We've done a good job at setting the brand, and we aren't perfect. I don't think any business is perfect by any means, but we're at that transition point where our overhead costs are going up, and we're trying to figure out what do we start saying no to. Right. Kind of like what you said. Well, if your cost is $2,000 to get up in the morning, you can't do a job for $500. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, where's that point now? What do we start saying no to? Like there has to be. It's not the only metric, but one of the metrics is we can't do small repair jobs, for example.
Right.
That's one side, but the other side of me is like, well, do we take it to keep our guys busy because the big jobs never line up perfectly? How would you coach me on that, right? So
Well,
it's a fine line between
there's
keeping
so
the
many
team.
variables in
There
that
is.
trick question you got from me, Casey. But definitely in business, you got to find your sweet spot. You got to find out what you can produce the most efficient at, so that you can be competitive and still make a profit, right? And I've done construction, and I was the anything you need renovator, from changing a light bulb to building a house. Well, there's three different business models that have to be enacted, and it's next to impossible, I learned to do. So I had to start picking and choosing jobs, and we went to the point where anything under $5,000 we didn't touch, because it actually cost us money to do. It sounded weird, but it just, our overhead cost was so high that, like I said, just to turn the truck on in the morning cost us $2,000. So we couldn't do the handyman jobs or the smaller repair work. But then again, on the other end of the spectrum, when it got into additions over 100,000 and building houses, well, that was a whole other ball game that required a different set of tools, a different type of training. That again, I actually lost money on jobs that were $200,000-300,000, but made money on jobs that were $20,000-50,000. So we had to realize what we can do, and if you're going to do everything, you literally have to have three different business processes and different staff and different training. So in construction especially, you have to say, okay, this is my sweet spot. These are the guys that I have that are fantastic, that work at these types of trades, these type of jobs. We got the tools for it. We don't have to outsource. We don't have to find different ways of doing things. I don't have to hire people who are terrible and do the job twice or three times. Like if you do the job twice, you've lost money. So those are the questions you got to figure out, and definitely have that sweet spot. Now you brought up something that everybody does. Every roofer has a snow plowing company because they want to keep their guys and have cash flow in the winter. Doesn't always work in construction. And what I found after a few years, it was better to take January and February, or basically from Christmas to February, off, and send everyone home and go on vacation, get out of the city, because it was depressing, at that time of year.
Happy about that.
Yeah. And so I started doing that. I started taking 3 to 6 week vacations, because not only was it the coldest time of year, but nobody wanted to talk to you. You didn't make any sales. Anything you tried to do, when you went into a private home for home renovations and it's minus 35 outside, and everybody was just miserable. So, yeah, that's my answer.
No, that's a good point, right? It's Wayne. There could still be there's always a third option, so to speak, right? There's not the two options of just like no work or work.
And the thing is, if you do things properly, you should be making enough for revenue and profit, so that you don't need to work 12 months of the year in a seasonal type industry and city that we live in. The tricky part, which is the variable, is keeping guys happy. But when most of your competition does the same thing and has no work and just trying to keep their key guys happy, it's not like those key guys are going to leave and go work for someone else that has a ton of work. Nobody does. So it's not that big of a risk, but also you want to keep staff happy. You can sweep your shop floor so many times in the winter and lose money. But that's a question you ask yourself according to budget. Are you willing to lose money to keep someone or not? And that's a personal decision.
Right. So when you were managing your team, they knew that's kind of what you did in the winter, and they would all plan for the same sort of thing, and the good guys would come back. How would you manage everything?
Yeah, I had some key guys, and I tried to find a little bit of work because it's tough. But yeah, most of 90% of the workforce was off for 2 months. And most of them appreciated it. When we went pretty hardcore throughout the year, so that to know you had 2 months off and then go to Cuba or Dominican, or take a vacation, or just work around their own homes, that was their chance. So it wasn't too bad of a stretch, but it still was tricky.
Because a lot of people are happy to take off in the winter anyways, right?
Absolutely.
So everybody plans for it at that point.
It's because the mindset is the same everywhere, so it wasn't hard. It wasn't like you're the only guy and everyone else was busy and you're gonna lose jobs or lose people. The whole city kind of turned on and off.
That's a good point.
Like
I never thought of it that way. So
yeah.
You're inspiring me.
Oh, thank you.
Well, to think differently, right? So
sure.
That's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast is getting that different thinking, right, and being open to another way of doing something. Right. Because obviously, something's broken in the sense that I know that there's, on paper it says we're making money, but cash flow is very different than making money, right? Because there's, on top of some of that other stuff, like if you do make a profit, well, part of that has to go to CRA. Right. So budgeting that and managing all of that as well, in terms of when everything has to go out and more employees, more source, all that fun stuff, right? So the puzzle, it's fun. I enjoy it. There are some days where I wake up and I say, why do I do this? But most of the days, it doesn't take very long actually. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is why I do it, right? So
Yeah, very good.
So let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to the beginning actually. If I
Sure.
remember correctly, you started, in your words I believe, as being a subcontractor when you were 4 years old for your brother.
True story, yes. So I always introduce myself when talking to entrepreneurs as I've been self-employed since I was 4 years old, and I was a subcontractor to my brother's paper route. So at 4 years old, my brother would pay me 10 cents in a bag of chips every Friday to deliver his papers. And I felt like a big shot at 4, I was living large until I found out at age 7 how much money he was making every 2 weeks. So I staged a coup and took over the paper route and became a serial entrepreneur after that. And it just moved from there. I was always had that entrepreneurial mindset. I was always trying to find ways to do things better. As a paper boy in the olden days when, child labor was not only encouraged, but, promoted, you were the first person people went to say, I need someone to cut my grass and shovel the snow and clean the eaves trough. So I was an entrepreneur at that age. At 9 years old, I had a route for cutting grass and shoveling snow and a landscaping company. And then at the age of 14, I teamed up with a friend of mine who was also a paper boy, and we decided, delivering papers by 14 was enough. So we started a landscaping company. And then from there went to a commercial cleaning company and 43 other businesses. So we just, grew from there, and I learned about customer service, about sales at a young age, and how to treat people and how to grow teams and how to grow businesses, and just got really proficient in that. So for the last 27 years, I've also been a mentor and a coach and trainer for all things business related.
So did I hear you right? You said 43 businesses?
Well, so Collab Space, which is I'm doing now, is actually business number 44, and number 45 is in the works.
So of those businesses, how many have failed?
So a good 4 or 5 of them have failed, but you know what? I call them my successes because everything I've learned, everything I've become today have come from those failures. I always tell people, failure is fun. Learn from your failures. I wouldn't be who I am today without those failures. As a kid, I had a big ego. I was cocky. I was, nothing could touch me. I knew how to do everything. And it wasn't until the first failure at around age 21 that I realized, I don't have the Midas touch. I got to smarten up. I have to do things differently. And then, you learn a lot from that. And I don't fear failure. I actually welcome it because that is the most educational time. And I actually don't really trust someone to give me advice about business if they haven't failed and overcome that yet.
Right. Sometimes we win and sometimes we learn.
Right.
So what was the lesson at age 21 with your first business failure?
Wow, you're taking me back. I'm an old man now. I learned...
or there's another failure that stands out. What was a lesson I'm sure that we can all learn from?
Well, first of all, not thinking that you know everything and that you can do everything yourself. The biggest lesson I tell people is the only thing you're guaranteed to be successful at alone is failure. I believe in doing things in teams, and I believe successful people are not self-made. They were actually made by the people around them. And if you pick anybody in history who's a billionaire or a successful businessman or however you want to count success, you look at the people around them. They never did anything on their own. So trying to be that independent person, trying to do everything by yourself without help of a community, you're basically setting yourself up for failure.
So what do you do to build your team? When you're starting a new business, so you have number 46 in the works right now.
45.
Sorry.
Slow down there. Slow down, Casey.
You're behind. What's going on? I thought you had 46. Anyway. Yeah. Sorry, 45.
Right.
What's the first thing you do? So you're starting a business now.
Sure.
I'm starting a business right now. What's the first thing to start with?
Well, there's a few different firsts. So, when you're coming up with what you should do and who you want to be when you grow up, I always look at making sure you have 2 things. And one is you got to have a strong passion. And passion just doesn't mean I really want to do it, but there's got to be a why attached to it. Like, why do you want to do something? And it also has to have the component of how is it making someone else's life better. Because if you add those two things together, nothing will stop you from achieving your dreams. So that's a first step for starting a business and figuring out what you want to do. But in order to actually start doing it, you really need to have a community of people around you. It's one of the reasons why I started Collab Space, because I believe, you've heard it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to raise a successful business. You can't do things on your own. So a lot of people tell me, well, once I have my business up and running and I'm making money, then I'll join the community. And I was like, well, you're missing out. You may never get there. Join the community before you even know what you're going to do, and start meeting people. Get out and network, make friends. Networking is not about selling, it's about making connections with people you want to hang around with and learn from and collaborate with. So everybody should be building their community or their tribe. And at Collab Space, we do that for you. We've built a community of like-minded entrepreneurs and small business owners, so there's an instant community that you can join and start growing your own personal community of people you want to surround yourself with. That really is the first step to making sure your passion and your dream is successful, because if there's no one there to hear you, help you, work with you, you're on your own, and we know that never works.
So is that one of the lessons you learned from one of your failures, or have you been passionate about every single one of your businesses?
Oh no, half the businesses I started were out of spite. I saw someone doing something wrong and said I could do that better, or I saw someone being mistreated and where they worked, and I was like, I could do that better. Half of those businesses were temporary, just to prove a point, and had no interest of continuing. Even though some of them made me a lot of money, it wasn't about the money, it was about proving a point. Hence so many businesses, as well as helping different people with their businesses. I invested in that. You can't run 46 businesses at once, it's impossible. It wasn't that I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I just loved the art of business. I loved taking a concept and making it sustainable and profitable. Once I got there, which was everyone's dream, to make money in your sleep, I got bored and had to find something else to fix or something else to prove. So a lot of those businesses were done in my youth with my big ego and trying to prove points, but now it's taking all that and putting it together and helping others. My passion in life right now is, how can I help you be successful in your business? What knowledge can I share with you and support you?
That's great. So Collab Space, explain a little bit more about Collab Space. I've been there, but paint a picture for people walking into Collab Space. What do they walk into? What do they see?
So we have a really cool space, but it really is more than space. Collab Space is a community for entrepreneurs and small business. And you'll always hear me say those two words together, because a small business owner may not necessarily be an entrepreneur, and vice versa. So entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to be supported and be surrounded by like-minded people, that's what Collab Space is. It's a community. And we provide a variety of services, your boring business center stuff, your co-working stuff, but what we really do is provide that support system. So unlike any co-working space or any networking organization, it's actually a community of support. I don't know how to explain it any better, it just works. People go there, they love the energy, they hang out, they meet people, we connect people, and business happens, great things happen. So, that's what we do.
And your space actually is quite nice to work from, right? So I was there, I was just saying, you weren't there, but I was there for helping out a mutual friend, and Chris Castillo, and that was the first time I was in the space, and the way you have all the different areas set up, and you have it open where people could rent the space too, I believe. I didn't go upstairs, but you kind of have, it's kind of a warehouse, but you have a bar at the back.
Yeah, you saw the bar. Yeah. Cool. Well, we took basically an industrial space that had some office in the beginning, and we just converted it into a place with micro environments, because as a business owner, sometimes you just want to put your head down and work in a cubicle. Sometimes you need to have that professional boardroom meeting, but business doesn't happen in a cubicle and in a boardroom. It happens at the bar, at the restaurant, at the golf course, while playing table tennis. It's building connections and networking, getting to know people, and the business happens later. The photo shoot of signing the contract may happen in the boardroom, but the business happened long before that. So I know as a business owner and entrepreneur, sometimes I just need to go and be around other people to be inspired. Sometimes I need to have some quiet time. Sometimes I want to work in a team and then, get upset and tell everyone to, get away from me for a little while. Well, you can do all that there. and because we have such a big space, we also throw some events, some networking events, some parties, and Thursday, which may be today, is our 4-year anniversary of Collab Space. So we're throwing a huge celebration for entrepreneurs and small business owners, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, check it out. Just search Collab Space, right? So it's 6:30.
Yeah, it starts at 6:30 till whenever. We're going to we got door prizes. We have members setting up a little booth, so you're going to meet people. It'll be about 300 people show up for this anniversary event. We also have food, a cash bar. We got cake. We have some keto-friendly desserts, which are always fun. We have a DJ. We just got a brand new 20-foot TV wall. We were playing the Raptors games, having our own little Jurassic Park. So we'll be playing some video and stuff. But just basically, it's a casual event. It's a lot of fun. It's an event we do every month on the third Thursday called Entrepreneurs in Action, or EIA. And this is our anniversary month, so we just kind of made it a bigger celebration with some more cake.
So that's Thursday.
And balloons. Don't forget the balloons.
Yes, balloons. Very important, balloons. And that they was telling me about my son let go of his balloon on Saturday. So
Right.
balloons can bring the greatest joy, but also cause the greatest pain when they float away in the sky.
Exactly.
So that's going to be Thursday, June 20th. We have our own customer appreciation event that night, but I'm hoping I can shoot out there if I get out of here early enough.
Cool. Love to have you.
I do want to circle back. You mentioned there's a difference between small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
What
So
is the difference?
a lot of people today, they get a business card, they start a business, they buy a franchise, they do something, they call themselves, I'm an entrepreneur. Well, the true definition of an entrepreneur is someone who's willing to do whatever it takes, what most people won't do in order to have what other people don't get. So, an entrepreneur is usually driven not by money, but by a passion of finding a new innovation for something, making a better mousetrap, solving a world problem. But they're driven by the passion of what they want to accomplish over, I just want a business that pays my bills, right? So if you buy a franchise and, you pay a fee and you show up and they train you and you just, you go through the motions, it's a great business opportunity, but it doesn't necessarily constitute you or define you as an entrepreneur. So there is a difference. And so that's why I usually say that being a small business owner, nothing wrong with either or, but an entrepreneur is a totally different mindset. It's someone that lives and eats and breathes and drinks their passion for business.
What about somebody who maybe has their own business, but it's just them? Would they be considered more like freelancer sort of thing, or how would you describe that? Are they still an entrepreneur?
It depends on their mindset. A lot of entrepreneurs are, you can be a freelancer, could be an independent person, but it's really the mindset of what they're trying to achieve,
So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Your mindset. I think
Sure.
I know at this point, after 9 years and lots of
Right.
failures along the way, that mindset's it's probably the 80-20 rule, right? So it's 80% psychology. If
Right.
your business is going to succeed, and 20% mechanics. That's kind of
Right.
what I've learned over
Sure.
the years. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you do to continue to build that mindset that's going to help propel you forward?
Sure. The 80-20 rule works in so many ways. I love that rule. But it's true. Like if you're someone who will give up easily on a project, well, you're not an entrepreneur. So that's an easy way to gauge that. But the mindset is definitely, and why I said there's two components about passion and changing other people's lives, because you need that strong why to continue. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be driven by a strong passion and know you're making a difference in others' lives. You're fixing a problem. You've challenged yourself to do something no one else has done before. That's an entrepreneurial mindset. And when you have that passion and that desire, and you have a hiccup, you got a call from CRA, you owe some taxes, which for a lot of people that's enough to say, I hate being an entrepreneur or small business owner, it's too much stress. Having a job or something that pays me every 2 weeks is much easier. So you're not an entrepreneur if that's how your mind works. And it's just important to understand. It's just something to understand. I mean, entrepreneurs used loosely and it's fine, it doesn't bother me, but there's a difference.
Now everybody thinks it's cool to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it's the new hip thing, which is great. I love promoting entrepreneurs. I believe everybody should quit their job and be an entrepreneur. It's not for everybody. As long as they join a community and have a coach and have a mentor, it can be done. And You can only ever achieve your true dreams by being a business owner and entrepreneur. You know, there's no job in the world, no matter how much they pay you, is enough, right? So you're always set on a set income. You can only do so much. You can only have so much time and energy to give, and you have a cap. Well, as a business owner, there's no cap. So if you truly want everything in life, you can get that through entrepreneurship. You can't get that through any job.
Do you do anything to continue to promote a healthy or positive mindset, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but
you know,
forward-thinking mindset?
You know, I'm always trying to change the language here in Ottawa. We do have a you know, everyone feels, you know, Ottawa's a boring conservative government town and there's nothing going on here unless you're in government or you're a little sprinkle of high tech on the side, but it's totally not the case. Ottawa is such a booming economy of small business. Like over 90% of all the economy in Ottawa comes from small businesses and private enterprises. It does not come from the government. You know, I don't know how many thousand government jobs there are, but there's 1 million people here. There's not 1 million government jobs here. So you take that into account. Without small business, there would be no Ottawa. So I try to change this mindset that, hey, entrepreneurship is huge here. Let's get out of our silos. Let's work together. Let's bring our community together. Let's support each other. So what I do at Collab Space, I try to get that message across. I try to let people know that our doors are open to help all entrepreneurs and small business owners. Let's build that community. I started a little monthly event called Let's Talk Entrepreneurs, which are helping, you know, in the mental health area. But as an entrepreneur, we have that extra stress that's really upon us. It's not easy to be a business owner and entrepreneur, especially if you never trained or you don't have that mentor or coach, you know. So I try to be available to support people and help them and create some events where come out and talk. You're not admitting to failure, you're admitting to saying, hey, this is tough. It's okay, we're here to help each other.
That's great, because when you're going through anything in life really that's tough, we always feel like we're alone. Right, so yeah. It's that power of community that you've been talking about.
And it's human nature. As soon as there's something stressful, is to go hide in a hole, right? Mm-hmm. To isolate yourself, and it's the worst thing you can do.
Hide in a hole with Netflix.
Yeah, you know. So we got to say first, it's okay. It's okay to talk and let people know you're having a bad day. It happens. If you're not having a bad day, you're not an entrepreneur. That's another way to gauge, you know. And so, and you're not the only one, right? So get out and share. We're all here to help and support each other. Well, we should be anyways.
Yeah, so that's happening every month? Is that a new event that you're doing?
It's something I started a couple months ago. It's called Let's Talk Entrepreneurs. It's usually the third Wednesday, the day before our Entrepreneurs in Action networking event. And so our place is open and people can come. We have a few coaches and mentors and different holistic therapists, and we're just all there to talk and trying to see where it goes, and basically whatever people need, we'll try to support them.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit about sales. That's another thing that we've been working on in the business. As a entrepreneur, business owner, mm-hmm. I'm doing the sales right now. So I have a partner, Arthur, who's helping with the sales as well. Mm-hmm. However, what we were working on at the end of last week and this week, the three partners, we were laying out our process for sales, trying to figure out how do we find that person for the sales system, sort of thing, right? And I think what you were just talking about is that there's three different businesses, or there can be three different businesses within construction, and it's very different selling for each one of those positions. So any tips, tricks, anything that works on the sales side, negotiations? I guess we can kind of take this anywhere at this point. For myself, if I was to be a little selfish right now, I would be like, okay, well, what are some tips and systems and processes that maybe you've done in the past that would help you promote your sales?
Well, that's a big question, Casey. I mean, sales and marketing is a huge, it's basically the biggest portion of any business. Without it, you don't have a business.
I feel like
I won't rant on that topic, but when it comes to, first you got to create the system that brings you the leads, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's flyers. I remember in the olden days, I used to flyer the entire city, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I did 2 to 3 million in sales from it. And then now that doesn't work anymore. So you find the system that brings you the leads. But even then, you got to pick on what are you going to talk about? What are you going to market? When you're generic, when you say, we do everything, you're going to get nothing, right? If you say, I'm a foundation specialist, or I do kitchens and bathrooms, or I do roofing, you got to pick something so people can relate, oh, I need that, or I know someone who needs that. When you're too general, which I've made that mistake, nobody understands what it is you do. Now you're making them think. In marketing, you got to do the thinking for people. You got to tell them, this is what I do, and this is why you need to call us. So, that's kind of the first step. Figure that out, pick something, and then your branding, your message, your languaging all revolves around that. So then next step is the leads come in. How do you take your leads? Is it digital? Is it a phone call? Is it a telegraph machine? Whatever comes in to get your leads, and then you process them, and you book. In construction, you got to book estimates. You got to go on site. You can't really quote over the phone. Anyone who expects that is not a real lead. So, you meet with the clients, and then I teach a whole course on, the 3 steps to sales mastery and how to close deals. So, then you're at that position. But first you got to get the people to call you.
And negotiating when you were 4 years old took you 3 years to realize that.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have negotiated that deal better, right?
Should have. I didn't know.
Okay, so now, like you said, flyers don't work anymore.
No.
Like the whole industry, everything, like the whole marketing world is being flipped on its head. And I don't know what you're seeing, but I feel like it's always changing in the sense that there's always some new platform or something different. How do you keep up with all of that?
Well, what I didn't say, which was really the first step, is first defining who really is your client. Because depending on who your client is, then you know where you need to go to find them. And a lot of people don't know who their client is. And here's another 80-20 rule for you, where 80% I've asked who your client is, they go, I don't know. And then 20% kind of give me a demographic. Well, they're, women from the ages of 35 to 55 that live in this house with this income with this many children, right? But that's still just a how, it's not the why. So you gotta ask yourself is, why are your clients picking you? What do you do differently? What solution do you solve? Because let's face it, in Ottawa, there's between 2,500 and 3,000 so-called renovators or tradesmen. Probably count on one hand who's any good, but you have all this fog of people that the consumer just doesn't know who to choose from. So you need to define what makes you special, what makes you unique, and then that'll put you right to the top. But when you figure out who your client is, which is what is the why, what is the solution that they're picking you over someone else who does, a kitchen or an addition or whatever, then you can define how to find them and where to go. When I first started out, a lot of my clients were seniors. So, I got Lowell Green, a CFRA talk show host who had a huge following of the seniors, and he was my spokesman, and it was great for a while, right? But then things changed. Then it became younger couples and different people who wanted things done, and the demographic changed. So, and the reason why people were hiring for different services changed. So you got to always be on top of that. Mm-hmm. And then you know where to go and what's going to bring you the best results.
What has got you most excited right now? There might it just goes out.
Excited. Yeah.
What has you most excited right now, and whether it's something in Collab Space or something that you have a new business coming out, maybe that's got you really excited. But what's really fueling you to jump out of bed in the morning?
Well, my passion is how I can support people be successful. And what I call success is having a self-sufficient business, right? So a self-sustaining company. I didn't talk about this earlier, but there's 3 stages of being in business. There's the hobby, there's the self-employed, and then there's the business owner. Some people still call themselves business owners, but if you are not making any money at what you're doing, it's a hobby, right? Nothing wrong with either one of those situations, but just realize if it's costing you to go to work, you have yourself a hobby on your hands. If you can't remove yourself from the job, if the business fails, if you're not there, well, then you're self-employed. You've bought yourself a job. Again, perfectly fine. But if you want to be a business owner, the definition of business owner is someone who the business continues in their absence. They're still getting paychecks, whether they're on a beach somewhere or halfway around the world. So that is where you have true freedom, and that is where you're able to own multiple businesses because you're not working in any of them. If you're working in them, then I tell everyone who's listening, you can only do one. Stop it, right? But if you want, you can own businesses. If you're not working in them, you can have as many businesses as you want, you know. Shark Tank, Dragon's Den people, they own thousands of businesses in their portfolio. They don't work at any of them. So my passion is I want to get people to that self-sustaining, you know, business owner state, and so that they can truly live their dreams. Everyone's dreams is different, but having that ability comes from being in that type of business, being a business owner with that freedom. So that's what gets me excited when I have success stories all the time of people that I've helped get from one step to the next step. That's what drives me. But on top of that, you asked about what's exciting. There's so much happening in the world. There's so much new innovation coming out. You know, getting in a blockchain and crypto world is, you know, for years have been stay away, that's a bad word. Well, that's changing. And, you know, if you don't know anything about the blockchain or cryptocurrency, you know, people say Bitcoin is one cryptocurrency, the initial, do some research. You'll be surprised how the economy is changing, how the world economy is changing, and it's actually becoming a common currency on how to buy and sell. But, you know, a lot of people don't know this. So we're about to see a huge, they call mass adoption happening soon in the crypto world. And, you know, you're going to hear about it maybe after everyone else, but you will hear about it soon.
I went to a crypto conference actually last year, Puerto
Okay.
Rico, so
Yeah.
it was eye-opening, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a different world, that's for sure.
It's true. So, I mean, there's a lot of things happening. You know, some people like cybersecurity, some people like AI, some people like autonomous vehicles. There's a lot of new things happening that's going to change how we do things today. And you need to, you know, stay educated and stay informed because it's going to affect your business.
So I want to go back something you had mentioned before with regards to getting out of the business, right? So you're not really a business owner until you can leave and it still continues to make you money.
Mm.
What I've found, partly because I'm one of these people, is a lot of businesses, and correct me if I'm wrong, you see a lot more businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been to kind of seminars and conferences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So where I've been, there's a lot of businesses that are started by artists. So
Right.
meaning that they're really good at their craft. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a carpenter by trade. I
Right.
was good at what I did. I could do it. I wanted to start my own business. At the time, I didn't really know why. I just wanted to
Right.
make money, do a good job, and then things changed, and the conscious builder evolved out of that as
Mm-hmm.
I grew and evolved my life.
Sure.
But as an artist, it's really hard to let go, and that's the only way we can really grow is by I'm really good at trusting people, but I'm still kind of.
Right.
I feel like I'm a perfectionist to some extent,
Sure.
and that's why I got into carpentry. Is it possible for an artist to kind of let go, or do they want to, or do they even? Is that kind of like you said? There's nothing wrong with just being in the business if that's what you want to do, right?
Right. So artists, I use that term a lot. You know, whether you're a tradesperson, whether you're an engineer, basically you're the guy that does the creating, and in different fields it's a different term, but we call them artists. Basically, the one with the skill set. Unfortunately, they make the worst business owners because they're perfectionists, and nothing in business will ever be perfect. They're too tied emotionally to the manufacturing portion of the business, and not the business process as a whole. And so that's the tricky situation. It's not that you can't be or you can't learn, but you got to let go and you got to understand for business to be successful, to grow, it can't just be about you, right? Now, what you've created is a self-employed situation where without you, there's nothing. So they'll never grow into a business. But also that mindset of an artist and a perfectionist, and it has to be my way or the highway. You're limiting yourself. You're really good at what you do. Without you, things can't get done because we need someone to fulfill, But business as a whole, the art of business is a different beast, and you have to be able to accept that business has to have processes. Everybody has to be replaced. Everybody has to be scalable and duplicated in order to grow. Without that, it won't work. And in a situation like, yourself, where it's got to be you touching everything, well, you can never sell that business. And if you can't sell a business, then it's not a business.
So one of the things because I realized that's why I have partners now. We all have different strengths, and we're pushing each other beyond our limits sort of thing, right? So it's good to have that community.
Sure.
Going back to that word, people where you're just not in it yourself, right? You I don't feel like I have to solve all the problems. I'm good at this. Let me focus on this. You tackle that. You tackle that.
It starts that way, Casey. You can't just start a business where you do nothing and hire people. Nobody knows what to do. So it starts that way where you got to figure out what it is you want, what accomplishments, how you want things to be fulfilled, and you create that process. But it has to be duplicatable so that you can teach someone else to step in your place and do what you do. Without that, you're locked in and you can't grow.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's share a little bit again about Collab Space before we close off here. So that's happening, this is Thursday, this is being released on Thursday. So if you're listening to this on the release date of June 20th, the event is tonight at Collab Space in Ottawa at 6:30 to whatever time.
Yeah.
Show up anytime. So definitely go there. Anything else you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, well, Collab Space is at 70 Bongard. If you don't know where that is, it's off Maryville Road, just past Hunt Club. But check us out on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, our website, Twitter. We're all over social media. We'd love to have you out, and it really is a celebration for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. It's not about Collab Space turning 4. It's about what we've done in 4 years and how we've helped entrepreneurs. And if you've never been there, this is the perfect time to come and get your first impression of Collab Space and how we can help you. And please, if it's your first time there, make sure you come and find me and say hello. I'd love to meet you.
That's great. And any parting words of advice for all the entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there listening?
Community. It's all about community. It's all about your tribe. It's all about the people around you. There's a famous African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I really believe that it's really about your team and the people you surround yourself. So if I can be some small part of your community and help you grow, that would mean a lot.
That's a great way to end it. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ginkgo. Ginkgo is an easy-to-use application that will save business owners money and time, all while giving them the ability to see their profits on their projects. Ginkgo does this through smartphone time logging, expense tracking, and a simple online dashboard. I am proud to say that I am the co-founder of this company, and as a listener of the Conscious Builder Show, we would like to offer you a special discount. In order to get this discount and start your free trial, go to theconsciousbuilder.com/Ginkgo. Ginkgo is spelled Gingko.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Conscious Builder Show. You can get a hold of Emile by going to collabspace.ca. That's collabspace.ca. And as usual, you will find all the links discussed in today's episode on the show notes page. Just head to theconsciousbuilder.com/podcast and enter Emile Salem, that's EMILESALEM, into the search bar, and his episode will pop right up. Lastly, if this episode was helpful, we ask that you share it with just one person that you believe it will help. Emile and I would really appreciate it.